It was late in the fall of 1817 when the Bell family, living in the quiet hills of Tennessee, began hearing strange noises coming from the darkness. At first, it was just faint knocks on the walls, soft enough to be mistaken for the wind. But soon, these noises grew louder, sharper, more insistent. The walls seemed to be alive, groaning under an invisible weight. The Bell family, once peaceful and content, were now on the verge of something terrifying, a nightmare they could not escape. The Bell family lived in a log cabin on a remote piece of land, tucked deep in the woods of Robertson County. The kind of place where the only sound on a clear night was the whisper of leaves in the wind or the distant call of an owl. They were simple folk, farmers, working hard from sunrise to sunset. Life was hard, but it was peaceful. That is, until the Bell children started to hear voices in the night. At first, it was just young Betsy Bell. She would wake up in the dead of night, her heart racing, her eyes wide with terror, as she swore she could hear a whispering voice, soft and sinister. "Betsy," it would hiss, "Betsy." But when she would turn around, no one would be there. Her father, John Bell, dismissed it at first, attributing it to a bad dream or the trick of a wind-blown branch. But then things got worse. The noises didn't stay in the walls. They began to manifest in the air, above the family. A strange, oppressive atmosphere hung over the cabin, like the air had thickened, heavy with something unseen. The Bell family would hear a knocking sound that came from the very air above their heads. Sometimes it would sound like fingers tapping against the ceiling, other times like someone was gently banging a hammer against the walls. But no one was ever there. John Bell, a pragmatic man, decided to investigate. Armed with nothing but his lantern and his will to protect his family, he spent countless nights roaming the land around his cabin, searching for an explanation. But nothing. It was as though the forest itself had grown silent, watching him. And when he returned to the house, the noises would continue, always just out of sight. Then, late one evening, when the family was gathered around the hearth, a new sound began. It wasn't a knock. It was the sound of something dragging across the floor, slow, deliberate, as if something unseen was pacing in the dark. But when the family tried to locate it, nothing was there. The dragging sounds would echo throughout the house, as though something or someone was walking through the empty halls. That was just the beginning. Betsy Bell, already terrified, began to feel something more sinister. She would wake up with her blankets ripped from her bed, or find marks on her skin that no one could explain. Some days, her hair would be tangled as though someone had been pulling at it while she slept, but no one would ever admit to it. And it wasn't just her. Her brother, John Jr., started to feel it too. The walls of their room would shake at night, rattling so violently it seemed as though they might collapse at any moment. Strange voices would whisper through the cracks in the walls, their words incomprehensible, but their tone unmistakably menacing. Then came the day when John Bell heard something he couldn't ignore. Sitting alone by the fire, he heard footsteps behind him, slow, heavy, deliberate. He turned to look, but there was no one there. His heart raced. He rushed through the cabin, calling for his wife, Lucy, and his children, but they were all in the fields, working, unaware of the strange presence that had now taken hold of their home. John Bell, a man of logic and reason, was beginning to break under the pressure. His normally steady hands trembled. The house, once a safe haven, now felt like a trap. The whispers continued, louder each night. The tapping on the walls grew more erratic, almost frantic, as if the spirit, or whatever it was becoming desperate. By this time, Betsy Bell was convinced that something was trying to harm her. She had started waking up with bruises on her arms and legs, strange welts that seemed to appear out of nowhere. Her parents, frantic and at their wits' end, thought maybe it was the work of a malicious neighbor or some unknown enemy. But no one could explain the strange, creeping feeling that filled the house, a feeling that the air itself was watching them, waiting. John Bell, now desperate, sought the help of the local community. He spoke to the town's elders, to the ministers, to anyone who might have an explanation, but nothing. Some suggested that it might be an evil spirit or even the work of the devil. Others suggested it was just superstition, nothing more than a bad case of nerves. But no one had any real answers, and things only seemed to be getting worse. The entity, whatever it was, didn't just target the Bell children anymore. It had turned its attention to John, Bell himself. One evening, John sat alone in his chair, lost in thought, when he felt a cold hand grip his shoulder. But when he turned to look, there was nothing there, only the echo of a voice whispering in his ear. "I will never let you go," it hissed. The air seemed to thicken, pressing against his chest. His heart pounded. John Bell's health began to deteriorate rapidly. He grew weak, his face pale and gaunt. He would often wake in the night, gasping for air, as though something was suffocating him. And yet, when the family rushed to his side, no one could explain it. They called for a local physician, Dr. Richard Powell, who was a trusted family friend, but even he could offer no more answers than anyone else. Dr. Powell's face, once full of concern, had started to change. He became distant, more withdrawn. He began to act strangely, as though something was eating away at him too. One night, after staying up late, Dr. Powell admitted to feeling a strange presence in the room. He claimed he had heard the same voice calling out to him, soft and insistent, just like the whispers that had haunted Betsy. Dr. Powell, who had once dismissed the Bell family's fears as superstition, was now visibly shaken, unable to offer any logical explanation. He confessed he had felt a presence, something dark and powerful, pressing in on him. The Bell family, by this point, had nowhere left to turn. One evening, when all hope seemed lost, a local spiritualist arrived at the Bell household. The man was known for his knowledge of the supernatural and had gained some notoriety in the area for performing rituals to banish evil spirits. He came under the pretense of trying to help the Bell family rid themselves of whatever force had taken hold of their home. The man arrived late in the evening, lantern light flickering against the windows, casting eerie shadows on the walls. His arrival seemed almost too late, as if the darkness was waiting for him. The spiritualist settled into a chair, asking the family to remain calm. As he began to speak softly, words passed his lips like an incantation, hoping to summon whatever was tormenting the Bells. The air grew colder, the walls began to rattle once more, and the familiar whispers filled the room. But this time, they didn't sound like a simple warning. They were angry. The growling voice that echoed through the house seemed different, stronger, more malevolent. "You cannot escape me," it hissed. "I will never leave." The room seemed to darken even further, as if the very light itself had been swallowed by the dark force that had taken over the house. The Bell family watched, frozen in fear, as the walls shook violently, the sound of knocking reverberating in the air above them. It was as though the very house was alive, thrashing against them, unwilling to release its grip. And then, in the midst of the chaos, something horrifying happened. A low, guttural voice broke through the cacophony of sounds. "You have failed." It was the voice of the spirit, stronger than ever before. The family could feel it, deep in their bones. This wasn't some simple haunting. This was a force far darker, far more terrifying than anything they had imagined. The spiritualist, trembling, began chanting louder, trying desperately to fight back against the force, but it was clear that whatever this entity was, it was too powerful. And then, as suddenly as it had all started, the house went silent. The Bell family, shaken and terrified, fled from the cabin. John Bell's condition had worsened, and his frail body seemed unable to withstand the pressure of the haunting any longer. They left behind their home, their belongings, their lives as they knew them, and never returned. The Bell Witch, as the entity came to be known, would never let go. Stories of the haunting spread throughout Tennessee, each retelling adding new layers to the legend. Some say the spirit still roams the woods. Around Robertson County, its thirst for vengeance unquenched. Others believe it was an evil spirit sent to punish the Bell family for some unknown sin. But no one truly knows. And in the end, the Bell Witch didn't just vanish. It had taken something from the Bell family, a piece of their souls, a piece of their sanity. And while the Bell family was never able to rid themselves of the spirit, they left behind a warning to anyone who dared listen. Some things are better left undisturbed. In the quiet of the hills, if you listen closely enough, you might still hear the knocking on the walls, the dragging of unseen feet, and the chilling whispers that speak of an evil that refuses to die. The Bell Witch, it seems, is still waiting. Make sure to subscribe to Open Files of True Horror, hit the notification bell,